The final sport we're going to talk about covering is bowling. I've had many people tell me that it's not really a collegiate sport if I can do it myself. Well, then I guess bowling will qualify because I am a terrible bowler. We're not talking about the beer and pizza leagues here, folks. We're talking about actual competitive bowling. As always, before you begin covering bowling, you need to learn the basics. As with all sports, the equipment has evolved. Balls used to be oak, and then they went to urethane and plastic and rosin. Balls have oil patterns that have developed and helped to increase scores. So you need to make sure that you learn about the different oil patterns. Pins are also aligned in a triangle of 4 rows, and a 300 score, 12 strikes in a row, is a perfect score. The game consists of 10 frames, and bowlers can bowl a second time in frames where pins remain. If you pick up all those extra pins, then you get a spare. A key thing to keep in mind, however, as you're learning the basics, is that the NCAA plays a different game than you see in the Pro Bowlers Association and then in different associations. The NCAA play includes qualifying rounds and Baker rounds, so you need to learn some of the details about that. Tournament events include 2 rounds followed by the bracket play. The Pro Bowlers Association consists of 4 major events, including the Masters, the U.S. Open, the World Championships, and the Tournament of Champions. Bowling has a language all its own, so you need to learn it. You need to learn their strategies. You need to learn how they look at oil patterns. You need to learn the difference between a one-handed versus a two-handed bowler. Some of those things can be very important to you. You also need to look at spin rate and revolutions. You need to look at ball speed. That can have a major impact on how a bowler performs. This isn't just as basic as it seems to look whenever you're watching on television, folks. Bowling is a very intricate sport, so learn those details. As with all sports, you need to arrive early and find out where the scores are going to be posted. Ask the coaches about the team matchups and who their top competitors are and who some of their rivalries might be against. And then ask if scores will be printed after the event or emailed to you later. Call the lanes ahead of time to verify the start times. Remember, a lot of times where competition is taking place is open lanes for fans and just local individuals to come in and bowl. So you need to make sure that you verify the times for the tournaments. If in college, make sure you contact the sports information director to get team statistics, individual statistics, and name pronunciations, and then ask about upcoming events and story angles. Perhaps a bowler is coming in and is coming off of an injury. Perhaps a bowler is coming in who is on a certain streak or is going for a record. Those types of things, different angles that you can be looking for. Maybe they're getting ready to play on their home lanes where they trained before they got to college. That can be really interesting and can give a particular bowler an advantage. You don't want to just stay in one place as you watch bowling. You do want to focus on the leaders, yes. You want to look for dramatic frames where they are maybe coming for a comeback or they're trying to hold off an opposition. Maybe they're picking up difficult spares. Maybe they've got a lot of strikes in a row going and they're trying to continue that streak to put some distance between them and the competition. So yes, you want to focus on that, but you won't be able to do that just staying in one lane. You want to move around the alley and look for the best matchups where you have a particularly tight battle going on. Or maybe you're looking for interesting or unusual performances. Perhaps you're finding that bowler that uses 2 hands, which is very, very rare and in some ways controversial. So look for those types of things and look for the angles. You need to keep in mind that bowling does not get a lot of attention, so the bowlers are going to be very excited to have you there. They may not be as experienced as other athletes in conducting interviews, but they're going to be appreciative that you're there to cover them, so be friendly and enthusiastic. Talk to the bowlers who made big moves either up or down. Maybe they got on a hot streak. Maybe they cooled off a little bit. Maybe they read something in the lane that really helped them improve as they went along, but maybe it was a little bit too late. Take time to visit with those bowlers about their strategy. Ask the players what they noticed about their opponents, and maybe they saw something that their opponents were doing that they were able to apply to their game. Ask them to describe their individual rounds. Maybe they were able to get several strikes in a row. Maybe they had to pick up several spares in a row. Maybe they got a couple of big spares and how they were able to keep their mindset and keep their focus on that. Do ask them about the lane conditions. Again, this is an indoor sport, but you're still going to need to look at conditions of the playing surface. Ask them about their approaches to the game, and then make sure you talk about the leaders and briefly explain the format of the event. As you begin to write your story, here are some tips about different things you might want to look at. You might want to think about the leaders who fell in later rounds, or the individuals who came from behind and picked it up late in the game. Provide some background for the tournament winners on how they've been performing. Maybe they've been on a hot streak, maybe they've been struggling, and all of a sudden they got hot in this one. So keep that in mind. Do find the unusual, as with anything, because we want to see different stories, things that come up that we haven't been preparing for or that we haven't thought about before. Do record how many strikes and spares there were, but also look for open frames when a bowler fails to knock down all 10 pins. A series of those can be very, very devastating. As with a no-hitter in baseball, watch for a perfect game, because that is really a big story. They don't happen very often. Avoid the bowling jargon that you're going to see so many times. That gets kind of played and becomes very cliche, so take note of that and try and avoid it as much as possible. But these are just some of the tips, the things to think about as you're covering your event. Look for those unusual stories. That's the big thing to think about. And finally, here are some notes for you to keep in mind as you're keeping score in bowling. Bowling, again, has a language all of its own. It's going to take some practice. It's going to take you some time to learn the different formats and the way they play. If you're really interested in covering bowling and getting really good at it, I would advise you to talk to Coach Ron Holmes, who is the head bowling coach here at the University of Central Missouri. We've had a very successful run as a bowling team as bowling begins to grow in the NCAA. But Ron does a great job of explaining the different rules and the different techniques. He explains the different players and the different roles that they play. So if you want to get into this and do a good job of covering bowling, which can help you make your mark, I would advise giving Coach Holmes a call, sitting down and visiting with him. He'll appreciate it, and you'll be a much better bowling reporter.